Good afternoon. I am so excited to be here today, kicking off an important and timely discussion about the future of Midtown. Over the past few months, MAS has convened a diverse group of stakeholders to discuss what the future of Midtown East should hold. And there are a number of important questions that have been coming up in these conversations, and I'd like to share or summarize these in 4 particular points. 1, how do we continue to create great civic spaces, places that create a shared sense of identity and continue to draw people to New York? Designed places that are a reflection of collective values and mindful of our human needs of scale, texture, and respite. 2, how do we simultaneously protect and build upon our history? This preservation question is stunningly complex and one that extends beyond individual buildings to texture and scale of neighborhoods. 3, how do we plan carefully and ambitiously, maybe even daringly, to meet our infrastructure needs? Are we planning new kinds of sustainable infrastructure beyond transportation that takes us into the world of civil engineering and landscape architecture through urban ecology, stormwater management, and issues related to climate change? And 4, how do we build buildings that will inspire us, and not just because of their sheer size, but because of their commitment to design, sustainability, longevity, and maybe even exquisite craftsmanship? MAS is deeply engaged in this work of creating a bold and inclusive vision for the future of Midtown and working with our friends and colleagues across the city. I believe I'm the first landscape architect, Vin conferred that this morning, to join the board of directors of the Municipal Art Society, thanks to Kitty Hawks, and I am inspired by their growing commitment to public space in the realm of landscape infrastructure, parks, and streetscapes, alongside all the other very important work of this organization. Today I have the honor of introducing someone who, like Municipal Art Society, has demonstrated the deepest commitment to the quality of our lives in the city we all share. The chair of the New York City Planning Commission and director of New York City Department of City Planning, Amanda Burden.
Would the panel like to sit down first, or you want to rather than being all huddled in the corner? Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, so much for your kind remarks. And I'm so thrilled to be here. Wow, what a turnout. It's really fantastic. And it's important because we're going to be talking about a very, very important subject that will affect all of us, and that all of us should participate in the voices on the future of East Midtown. So, thank you, Vin, Jeannie. Thank you, MAS, for hosting us today to discuss one of the most important initiatives of this administration, city planning's proposed rezoning strategy for East Midtown. This is, as I say, an important conversation, and one of many to date and many to come. But before I discuss the proposal, I want to provide some context for this effort. When I became commissioner, Mayor Bloomberg made clear his commitment to create economic development in all 5 boroughs of this city. And this agenda became the basis on which we started our intensive effort to grow business districts around the city. And for the last 10 years, as described eloquently earlier this morning by Deputy Mayor Steele, this administration has successfully pursued a multifaceted economic development strategy that recognizes the need for a wide range of office space and investment throughout the city to serve a diversity of businesses that want and choose to be in New York City. Equally important is our overarching commitment to create great spaces with a vibrant street life, good design, and the amenities that are necessary to transform a place into places that people want to be. Sorry. East Midtown is, and I think we could all agree, unquestionably one of the nation's premier office districts, certainly an area of global distinction, a place of cachet and character. It is the midtown of Seagram's, Chrysler, Lever House, Citigroup buildings, and of the beloved Grand Central Terminal. It is, it's important to know all these things, a regional transit hub, a vital job center, and because it is home to many premier tenants, importantly, a major tax base for New York City. East Midtown's position as an economic powerhouse, however, is far from guaranteed. As you have heard this morning, the average age of office buildings in East Midtown is more than 70 years old, already substantially older than the office buildings in business districts in global cities around the world. These older buildings were built with low floor-to-ceiling heights and forests of interior columns. Over time, these buildings will become less and less desirable for premier office tenants. However, right now, there are virtually no incentives for any new development in Midtown, no incentives. In fact, the current zoning is an impediment to development. Virtually every major new development now is required to go through the multi-year-long special permit process, through a full ULURP. Further, it is so difficult now to transfer air rights from Grand Central Terminal that only one sizable transfer has occurred in 20 years. This is not a good situation. So I think we can all agree that this is a problem. And I think we can all also agree that the pedestrian realm is not what it should be for a great business hub. The sidewalks are too narrow on Lexington Avenue, even on Madison Avenue. And Vanderbilt Avenue is not what it should be. It is cramped and dark, and the side streets are really narrow and also cramped. Equally as significant, the Grand Central subway system has bottlenecks that are now increasingly affecting the entire system. This does not paint a bright picture for the future of this extraordinary asset and prime business address. Without intervention, the district's importance will diminish and continue to diminish over time. And over time, this will cost the city both jobs and tax revenues, resulting in citywide impacts. So, our approach, first and foremost, recognizes that East Midtown is a great place. And this proposal is, importantly, a long-term plan. It seeks to address the issues I have mentioned and ensure that the district can be strengthened over time. The proposed zoning provides targeted incentives in order to seed the area with a handful of new, state-of-the-art, Class A office buildings over the next 20 years. It is not about wholesale redevelopment. The proposal would limit new development to sites with specific criteria, and any new development would be required to pay into a fund that would be dedicated to significant transit and pedestrian improvements. The essence of our proposal is to increase the as-of-right floor area and to induce the kind of state-of-the-art development that new construction offers, and that, over the next decade, will maintain the preeminence of East Midtown as a world-class business district and dynamic job center. Without question, the best place to accommodate higher densities is in the immediate vicinity of Grand Central Terminal. We are a transit-oriented city, and this is the right place for the most density. Park Avenue would be the second tier of targeted increased density. To ensure that we get Class A office buildings in the right location, the new zoning densities could only be used for fully commercial developments on sites that are at least 25,000 square feet and have, importantly, a full avenue frontage. As I mentioned, built into our zoning proposals is the principle that new additional density could only be achieved in exchange for a significant contribution to a district improvement fund which would pay for critical pedestrian and transit improvements. One of the fund's most exciting potential projects is the transformation of Vanderbilt Avenue from an underused and bleak corridor into an elegant and dignified gateway, one befitting a world-class business district. We have been working with the MTA to identify specific improvements to the area subway stations that will reduce commuter crowding and increase the number of trains that can run in rush hour. And as you know, many of you know, we have been actively soliciting ideas from stakeholders for other improvements that could be paid for by the fund, and we welcome yours. Our proposal also contemplates the opportunity for significant developments, which we are describing as superior developments, to apply through a full special permit ULURP process for additional FAR in exchange for creating a substantial and significant public benefit. The burden would rest on the developer to demonstrate that a proposed development is superior on all counts. The amount of FAR would be fully discretionary. Listen, piercing the skyline is in a distinctive and distinguished manner has always been integral to the most aspirational of all cities, ours. And we think this is the ideal framework to provide for that opportunity. It is indeed crucial to get this zoning underway and adopted in 2013. This is our only chance to catalyze critically needed commercial development over the course of this next decade, signaling a bright future to come for East Midtown. This should be the great chapter for East Midtown, the next great chapter, securing its future as the world's premier business district, supporting the city's overall economy, creating a generation of new icons, and creating a greatly improved public realm. We look forward to working with all the stakeholders and many of you here today to write this next chapter and continue to make New York City the greatest city in the world. Thank you very much, and I'm excited to welcome and thank the panelists for their participation, and I'm eager to hear your discussion. Thank you all so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Bagli. I'm a reporter for the New York Times, and this panel will be discussing this zoning proposal. It's a very short panel, short in time, not in stature, and it's going to be a lot more like a speed dating than the presidential debate. We're going to start with say a 2-minute opening statement from each of our panelists. First with Edith Hsu-Chen from City Planning. Edith.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you to my fellow panelists and to everyone here and to MAS for this event. It's wonderful to be here. I like to start off by emphasizing that this is a long-term plan. We at City Planning, we take the long view. That is our responsibility to put into place plans and policies that ensure the health and vitality of all our neighborhoods in New York, and this certainly applies to our core central business district, East Midtown. We've been studying this area very intensely for some time now, and we have a diagnosis that this area is in trouble in the long term. Today, there is 70 million square feet of office space in East Midtown, but what we found is that less than 5% of that total office space, actually closer to 3%, is office space that was constructed in the last 2 decades. This does not bode well for East Midtown. This does not bode well for companies that want to come in and they want the best possible space. They want state-of-the-art space. They're willing to pay top dollar for it, but they won't be able to find this space. And as Amanda mentioned, zoning has been a huge impediment to getting new development here. So what we are trying to do with this rezoning is we are actually trying to turn the zoning on its head and turn it into a powerful tool that will induce the kind of new commercial development, state-of-the-art development that we need here, and at the same time bring in improvements to the public realm. It's a guiding principle with us that we pair high-density development with improvements to the public realm. And I also want to emphasize that we need to get this done now. It takes a long time to develop in a densely developed area already. The properties need to be assembled, decanted, demolished, prepped. It takes a long time for this. We need to make sure we have the zoning in place to give property owners some confidence that they can move forward with these risks on considerable assets.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think you might have gone under. John, you promised to go over.
Yes.
All right. I
We'll
see my
balance.
time. Okay.
I also want East Midtown to be all that it can be. However, its attractiveness does not depend on the friendliness of its zoning. It depends on access and on the public realm. To ensure the continued attractiveness of East Midtown, we should first devise the best possible plan to improve access and the public realm. We might then discover that zoning is one of the tools that can help implement that plan. Now, access to the place depends on trains. Today, Grand Central is served by Metro North and several subway lines. Soon it will be served by the Long Island Railroad via East Side Access, and eventually it'll be served by the 2nd Avenue subway. 2 other improvements should be in that plan. A direct rail connection between Penn Station and Grand Central to allow New Jersey Transit and Amtrak to serve the East Side, and a 1-seat rail access to each of the 3 airports. The spaces, thank you, the spaces that one experiences while using the city constitute its public realm. Now, for convenience, let's consider the public realm in 3 related categories: Grand Central space, on-site public space, and off-site public space. It's useful to think of Grand Central as 3 interconnected train stations: the subway complex, the historic station, which is occupied by Metro North, and the new East Side Access Station, which is to be occupied by the Long Island Railroad. How can these parts be better connected to each other and to the local streets and surrounding buildings? On-site public space should be provided by the sites that are redeveloped adjacent to Grand Central. This should connect each new building to its neighbors, to the city streets, and to the transit. It might even add a few strategic public places. Now, the existing streets offer many opportunities to improve off-site public space. How can they be designed to better serve their primary user, the pedestrian? So, a different approach to securing the future of East Midtown would be for government to start by preparing a plan for the public realm, and it would then implement that plan, and one of its tools would undoubtedly be zoning. Now, as for those few new iconic Class A office buildings in the city's premier central business district, I have no doubt the real estate industry will build them just as soon as the market allows.
Thanks, John. I forgot to introduce John. He's an active planner, active at the community board level for many years on these very topics.
Thank you.
Michael Chappell, consultant who specializes in the needs of companies that want new office space.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue. I think from a tenant's perspective, what we're seeing is certainly the more Class A office space that's column-free, that has higher ceilings, is certainly what those kinds of organizations are looking for, and the kind of organizations that would occupy this premier space, and the kind of rents that it would demand: professional services, financial services, maybe some media, large technology firms. That's the kind of space that they're looking for. I think it's really important in considering the proposal that there's still diversity within this zone, that those kind of organizations, certainly as they mature, as people become much more mobile in how they work, both in and outside of the office, the diversity of that kind of space that's provided by that new development, as well as the existing diversity in the city that allows people to leverage not just their office space, but being able to connect with partners and collaborators all around the city in third-party spaces. We've seen a lot of rise of spaces like co-working spaces that allow people to work all around the city. And connect with others is really important. And so I think if that's maintained, then the needs of organizations as well as workers will be met.
Okay. Tony Hiss, the author of A Sense of Place. Tell us how this is going to affect a sense of place on the East Side.
Hi, I'm Tony Hiss, someone who's always been fascinated by how the spaces and places of the city can open our minds and enrich our lives day after day. I have 3 pictures to share with you. Hope the first one will come up. One is current. One was lost long ago, but could be ours again. And one that is truly ancient and that no one has ever seen until now. And now we can go back to the first slide, please. This year I wrote the introduction for an excellent new book by Tony Robbins and the Transit Museum, celebrating Grand Central Terminal's centennial. The station, which amazingly turns 100 in February, is one of the most innovative buildings in history, and one of the great challenges of the next century is to spread its genius beyond its doors. What's so special about Grand Central? Entering a room 12 stories high, roofed by nighttime stars, you feel as if a weight has been lifted from your shoulders. Every step you take here has been thought about and prepared for. The result is a place where you feel welcomed, looked after, taken care of. The message constantly being broadcast is that each moment can be refreshing, fulfilling, worthwhile, that even getting to work and going home can add to life's rewards and be looked forward to. Ironically, although the coming of Grand Central rescued 4th Avenue, once the city's worst address, and turned it into Park Avenue, the city's best, the Grand Central experience was never encouraged to spread as the Grand Central District grew. As 50-story office buildings have replaced 15-story buildings, the district has increasingly become, as Amanda alluded to, a cramped, crowded, confusing place to walk through, offering few spots worth lingering in. Now that the city is talking about even taller office towers, there's a dangerous imbalance between indoors and outdoors. Planners, Amanda, Edith, dear planners, you are the guardians of our future. We need you to be the far-sighted champions of each of us. Of course, businesses and office workers want and deserve Class A office space. Equally these days, they, like everyone, want, deserve, and need Class A open space. Air rights are important, so are street rights. Historically, we've held office districts to oddly lower standards when it comes to their public spaces, a notion that suddenly seems out of date. The planning department talks of pedestrianizing Vanderbilt Avenue. A good start, but it feels to me like the first 4 bars of a haunting, irresistible melody. From this afternoon on, we need a specific, explicit open space agenda for this entire Midtown area, one that operates both at grade and below, and can be jump-started by a little retrofit. You'll hear some great open space ideas later this afternoon. Let's commit immediately and officially to a continuous track of green throughout the district, one that effectively connects Central Park to Bryant Park. At the northern end, let's rescue and restore the mid-street Park Avenue Park, seen here, that traffic engineers sheared away in the 20s. Connect them to a pedestrianized Vanderbilt and Park Avenue viaduct. Connect that via Pershing Square and Library Walk on 41st Street to the New York Public Library, refashioning the 2 great gleaming palaces of the people, the library and Grand Central, as the southern co-anchors of the entire Grand Central and East Midtown area. Then we'd have a world-class district worthy of our beloved Grand Central.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
And there's the 3rd slide. Charlie wants me to keep you guessing about it, so we'll look at it later.
Just so we have a little mystery to continue. Let me take you all back a little bit to 1982. Okay, like the presidential debate, we'll hold the clapping to the end. I'll take you back to 1982, when they did the rezoning of Midtown. There was a judgment made that the East Side had gotten congested, that it was overbuilt, and there was a desire to push development westward, both to Times Square and to Columbus Circle. should we reverse that verdict? Is it time to reverse that verdict, and why?
I'd like to start.
Okay, good idea.
You cited the date 1982. That was 30 years ago. It's time to revisit the zoning. It absolutely is time to revisit. The Midtown district that was put in place in 1982 actually has been phenomenally successful. Its primary goal was to shift development westward over to Times Square, 6th, 7th, and 8th Avenue. And since then, of course, we've expanded even further west with the creation of Hudson Yards, which we are all very excited about. It was very successful in doing that. The Midtown district never imagined that the new space in the west would replace the space in East Midtown. It was additive. We need all this commercial floor area. It's time to revisit East Midtown because, as we mentioned earlier, the stock is beginning to lose a very critical component, which is the super class A stock, which is so important to keeping the market fluid and vital and attractive, very attractive, because everyone wants to be clustered together and players want to be with the other players, major players. It's important that we revisit East Midtown, and we need to do it today.
Gentlemen, I want you to respond to that with this one thought in mind. Just the other day, a building came on the market. Lehman Brothers wants to sell 237 Park. They think that this building will fetch $800 a square foot, a phenomenal number. It's 100 years old. It would not seem, it doesn't seem that they're devaluing these aging buildings. In fact, they're figuring out ways to use that space. Is there a necessity here?
Is there a necessity?
Well, jump in, Michael. Michael?
I think, I'm not sure if it's a necessity, and I do definitely think, and when I was talking about diversity, I think it is about rethinking potentially some of the existing stock that's there and how it's used and maintaining a good portion of it. I think that's important to continue that diversity. But I think if we do want to attract and maintain big corporate clients who value that address and the rents that go with them, then I think that is important to add more space. That is the quality that they're looking for.
I think there's general agreement that one of the attractions of East Midtown is that it is a mixed-use area. And I understand the argument that there's an element of that mixed use, the Class A buildings, which are aging out, and they need to be gradually replaced over time. The argument that there should be a plan in place first, I think also leads to focusing where those buildings would happen. And I think they should be, the zoning should be crafted in such a way that the new buildings occur where they can contribute the most to the public environment, to the public realm, the commons. And you have to have the plan first in order to do that.
Well, may I jump in?
Well, yes, but I want you to talk to this issue. You mentioned that there's a lot of pressure to do this as soon as possible. Now, I cover the commercial market, and I know there's a lot of developers that are begging for tenants right now. So why is there that necessity to do it now? John is suggesting that we take a little more time to think out this plan.
This is not a plan for next week. This is a plan for the next 20, 30 years. It is really important that we get the zoning in the books now so that developers can take the time, so they have certainty and they have predictability that there are allowances to develop certain buildings. There are, I want to take a quick moment to address something that John raised, which was appropriate sites. We actually have thought this through very carefully, and we believe there are certain sites that are great, that are appropriate for these new commercial buildings. They have to be of a certain size. They have to be over 25,000 square feet, for example, and they have to have full avenue frontage. These are the kind of sites that are going to be able to deliver, great commercial new buildings.
Okay, so, John, no, you don't get to speak. Tony.
I would agree with Edith that now is the time to revisit the area. Of course, I'm talking in terms of open space needs as well as development needs. When East Side Access comes online a few years from now, at the moment, 750,000 people move through Grand Central every day. Another 125,000 will be coming through the station as soon as East Side Access is complete and Long Island Railroad runs into Grand Central. Cramped streets now will be far more cramped then. We need to get started on a massive rethinking of the open space of the area immediately. So I welcome this initiative from that point of view. As for the age of buildings, it's elastic. We talk about older office buildings as poor relics. We celebrate the fact that Grand Central struggled and made it through to its first 100 years, and its first 100 years look like they'll be the hardest. The next century is bright for Grand Central.
Okay, let's talk for a moment about how this is going to happen, that there's the sale of development rights, either from the city or Grand Central, and that, well, at least from the city, that money would then pay for the improvements both at Grand Central and on the pedestrian, on the walkways, on the sidewalks, and at a couple of subway stations. But will it actually generate enough of it? I mean, we've seen the slow progress at Hudson Yards, and I just wonder whether this is really, if this is a priority, do we need to put this into the city budget as opposed to trying to create a mechanism? Because this mechanism, if I recall, on this site, when the city wanted to sell this property to Mortimer Zuckerman to build a tall tower, the judge eventually weighed in on this question of selling bonuses and said, well, you're actually selling zoning, and you shouldn't do that. And so he struck it down, that original deal. I know there's a couple nuggets in there. Who wants to jump on that one? Edith?
Well, the example that you bring up of the sale of developments related to this site, it's not inappropriate. It's not an equivalent example of what we're trying to do in East Midtown. In East Midtown, we are creating a DIB, a district improvement bonus. It's a form of incentive zoning. And we have an incredible track record of incentive zoning in New York City, starting with 1961. We heard earlier from Gerald Caden about privately owned public spaces and how much open space we got in the city because of this incentive zoning mechanism. So the DIB is different from the example that you cited. Why am I forgetting your earlier question? Excuse me.
Oh, is there enough money? Because, I mean, there is the rumor right now that the MTA thinks they'll need $400 million to reshape Grand Central.
I do want to say that the public is investing in this area. The public sector, the MTA is putting billions into the East Side Access project on a lower scale, but it will have a tremendous transformative effect. DOT is improving Pershing Square, so it'll be a great usable public space. The public sector is investing, but we have limited resources. We all know the state that we're in. We have limited coffers. Where is this money going to come from to deliver all the public improvements that we need? We are leveraging private development through our rezoning to help deliver improvements to the pedestrian and transit network. It is additive. It's not everything. It's not going to be everything. You know, and we're not talking about billions of dollars. We're just not. So we're not talking about so much money that we're going to be able to, bore new tunnels, and that's not the kind of improvements we're aiming for anyhow. I think the DIB has this wonderful benefit in that it grows over time. The fund grows over time, and you can do improvements in phases. We won't be able to do everything all at once, but we can take things project by project.
Okay, and our time is drawn to a close. I know you're all breathless after that. I don't know if we could go on a minute or two longer. Or I'll give you all one sentence to conclude. So make it pithy and provocative.
Oh, no pressure.
And we'll start over on the end with Tony.
The picture I didn't show you is what's been found 125 feet underground by the East Side Access tunneling. For the first time, we're seeing what New York was like 750 million years ago. Now we can connect the heavens at the top of Grand Central Station to the ancient history. Incredible opportunities here, and we must start. It's all the same run-on sentence. And we can commit today to connecting Central Park to Bryant Park through East Midtown.
Michael, one sentence.
I think it's really important to think about the use of all the spaces, not just that we create, but that are already here and available for corporations.
John, now's your chance.
I think we should get the cart and the horse in the right positions.
Good. Edith.
Let's keep East Midtown the best business address in the world.
Okay. Thank you all.